Hi, I'm Melissa with The Mindful Heart. I'm so excited for today's story. It's one about my favorite night. I found it in a book called Why the Chimes Rang by Raymond Alden. It takes place in a forest at a splendid castle with great stone walls and a high gateway with turrets that rise above the tallest trees. The forest is dark and dangerous, and many cruel giants live in it. But in the castle is a company of knights kept there by the king of the country to help travelers who might be in the forest, as well as to fight with the giants whenever needed. Each of these knights wore a beautiful suit of armor and carried a long spear, while over his helmet there floated a great red plume that could be seen a long way off by anyone in distress. But the most wonderful thing about this knight's armor was their shields. They had been made by a great magician who had lived in the castle many years before. They were made of silver and sometimes shone in the sunlight with dazzling brightness. But at other times, the surface of the shields would be clouded, as though by a mist, and one could not see his face reflected there as he could when they shone brightly. Now, when each young knight received his spurs and his armor, a new shield was also given to him from among those that the magician had made. And when the shield was new, its surface was always cloudy and dull. But as the knight began to do service against the giants, or went on expeditions to help poor travelers in the forest, his shield grew brighter and brighter so that he could see his face clearly reflected in it. But if he proved to be a lazy or cowardly knight and let the giants get the better of him, or if he did not care what became of the travelers, then the shield grew more and more cloudy until the knight became ashamed to carry it. But that was not all. When any one of the knights fought a particularly hard battle and won the victory, or when he went on some hard errand for the lord of the castle and was successful, not only did his silver shield grow brighter, but when one looked into the center of it, he could see something like a golden star shining in its very heart. This was the greatest honor that a knight could achieve, and the other knights always spoke of such a one as having won his star. It was usually not until he was pretty old and experienced as a soldier that he could win it. And at the time when our story begins, the lord of the castle himself was the only one of the knights whose shield bore the golden star. There came a time when the worst of the giants in the forest gathered themselves together to have a battle against the knights. They made a camp in a dark hollow not far from the castle, and they gathered all the best warriors together, and then all the knights made ready to fight them. The windows of the castle were closed and barred, but the air was full of the noise of armor being made ready for use, and the knights were so excited that they could scarcely rest or eat. Now, there was a young knight in the castle named Sir Rowland, who was among those most eager for the battle. He was a splendid warrior with eyes that shone like stars whenever there was anything to do in the way of knightly deeds. And although he was still quite young, his shield had begun to shine enough to show plainly that he had done bravely in some of his errands throughout the forest. This battle, he thought, would be the great opportunity of his life, and on the morning of the day when they were to go forth to it, and all the knights had been assembled in the great hall of the castle to receive the commands of their leaders, Sir Rowland hoped that he would be put in the most dangerous place of all, so that he could show what knightly stuff he was made of. But when the lord of the castle came to him, as he went about in full armor giving his commands, he said, "One brave knight must stay behind and guard the gateway of the castle, and it is you, Sir Rowland, being one of the youngest whom I have chosen for this job." At these words, Sir Rowland was so disappointed that he bit his lip, and he closed his helmet over his face so that the other knights could not see it. And for a moment, he felt as if he must complain angrily to the commander and tell him that it wasn't right to leave so sturdy a knight behind when he was so eager to fight. But he struggled against this feeling, and he went quietly to look after his duties at the gate. The gateway was high and narrow and was reached from outside by a high narrow bridge that crossed the moat, which surrounded the castle on every side. When an enemy approached, the knight on guard rang a great bell just inside the gate, and the bridge was drawn up against the castle wall so that no one could come across the moat. Because of this, the giants had long ago given up trying to attack the castle itself. Today, the battle was to be in the dark hollow in the forest, and it was not likely that there would be anything to do at the castle gate, except to watch it like a common doorkeeper. And anyone, including Sir Rowland, would have thought someone else could have done this job. Presently, all the other knights marched out in their flashing armor with their red plumes waving over their heads and their spears in their hands. The lord of the castle stopped only to tell Sir Rowland to keep guard over the gate until they had all returned and to let no one enter. Then they went into the shadows of the forest, and they were soon lost to sight. Sir Rowland stood looking after them long after they had gone, thinking how happy he would be if he were on the way to battle like them. But after a little while, he put this out of his mind, and he tried to think of pleasanter things. And it was a long time before anything happened, or any word came from the battle. At last, Sir Rowland saw one of the knights come limping down the path to the castle, and he went out on the bridge to meet him. Now, this knight was not a brave one, and he had been frightened away as soon as he was wounded. "I've been hurt," he said, "so I cannot fight any more. But I could watch the gate for you, if you would like to go back in my place." At first, Sir Rowland's heart leaped with joy at this. But then he remembered what the commander had told him about going away, and he said, "I would like to go, but a knight belongs where his commander has put him. My place is here at this gate, and I cannot open it even for you. Your place is at the battle." The knight was ashamed when he heard this, and he turned about and he went into the forest again. And so Sir Rowland kept guard silently for another hour. Then there came an old beggar woman down the path to the castle and asked Sir Rowland if she might come in and have some food. He told her no one could enter the castle that day, but he would send a servant out to her with food, that she might sit and rest as long as she would like. "I have been past the hollow in the forest where the battle is going on," said the old woman while she was waiting for her food. "And how do you think it's going?" asked Sir Rowland. "Badly for the knights, I am afraid," said the old woman. "The giants are fighting as they have never fought before. I should think you had better go help your friends." "I should like to indeed," said Sir Rowland. "But I am set to guard the gateway of the castle, and I cannot leave." "But one fresh night would make a difference when they are all weary with fighting," said the old woman. "I should think that while there are no enemies about, you would be much more useful there." "You may well think so," said Sir Rowland, "and so may I. But it is either you nor I that is the commander here." "I suppose," said the old woman, "that you are the kind of knight who likes to keep out of fighting. You are lucky then to have so good an excuse to stay home." And she laughed, a thin and taunting laugh. And then Sir Rowland was very angry, and he thought that if it were only a man instead of a woman, he would show him whether he liked fighting or not. But as it was a woman, he shut his lips and set his teeth hard together, and just then the servant came with the food he had sent for. He gave it to the old woman quickly and then shut the gate, that she might not talk to him any more. It was not very long before he heard someone calling outside. Sir Rowland opened the gate and saw standing at the other end of the drawbridge a little old man in a long black cloak. "Why are you knocking here?" he said. "The castle is closed today." "Are you Sir Rowland?" said the little old man. "Yes," said Sir Rowland. "Then you ought not be staying here while your commander and his knights are having so hard a struggle with the giants. And when you have a chance to make of yourself the greatest knight in the kingdom, listen to me. I have brought you a magic sword." As he said this, the old man drew from under his coat a wonderful sword that flashed in the sunlight as if it were covered in diamonds. "This is the sword of all swords," he said, "and it's for you, if you will leave your idling here by the castle gate and carry it into battle. Nothing can stand before it. When you lift it, the giants will fall back, and your master will be saved, and you will be crowned the victorious knight, the one who will soon take his commander's place as lord of the castle." Now Sir Rowland believed that it was a magician who was speaking to him, for the sword certainly appeared to be a magic sword. It seemed so wonderful that the sword should be brought to him, that he reached out his hand as though he would take it, and the little old man came forward as though he would cross the drawbridge into the castle. But as he did so, it came to Sir Rowland's mind again that the bridge and the gateway had been entrusted to him, and he called out, "No!" to the old man, and he stopped right where he was standing. But he waved the shining sword again, and he said, "It's for you. Take it and win the victory." Sir Rowland was really afraid that if he looked any longer at the sword or listened any more to the words of the old man, he would not be able to hold himself within the castle. And for this reason he struck the great bell at the gateway, which was the signal for the servants inside to pull in the chains of the drawbridge. And instantly they began to pull, and the drawbridge came up, so that the old man could not cross it to enter the castle, nor could Sir Rowland go out. Then, as he looked across the moat, Sir Rowland saw an interesting thing. The little old man threw off his black cloak, and as he did, he began to grow bigger and bigger, until in a minute he was a giant as tall as any in the forest, and Sir Rowland could scarcely believe his eyes. Then he realized that this must be one of their giant enemies who had changed himself into a little old man through some magic power, that he might make his way into the castle while all the knights were away. Sir Rowland shuddered to think what might have happened if he had taken the sword and left the gate unguarded. The giant shook his fist across the moat that lay between them, and then, knowing that he could do nothing more, he went angrily back into the forest. Sir Rowland now resolved not to open the gate again and to pay no attention to any other visitor. But it was not long before he heard a sound that made him spring forward in joy. It was the bugle of the lord of the castle, and there came sounding after it the bugles of many of the knights who were with him. And they sounded so joyfully that Sir Rowland was sure they were safe and happy. As they came near, he could hear their shouts of victory. So he gave the signal to let down the drawbridge again, and he went out to meet them. They were dusty and blood-stained and weary, but they had won the battle with the giants, and it had been such a great victory that there had never been a happier homecoming. Sir Rowland greeted them all as they passed over the bridge, and then, when he had closed the gate and fastened it, he followed them into the great hall of the castle. The lord of the castle took his place on the highest seat with the other knights about him, and Sir Rowland came forward with his key of the gate to give an account of what he had done in the place to which the commander had appointed him. The lord of the castle bowed as a sign for him to begin, but just as he opened his mouth to speak, one of the knights cried out, "The shield! The shield! Sir Rowland's shield!" Everyone turned and looked at the shield which Sir Rowland carried on his left arm. He himself could see only the top of it and did not know what they could mean. But what they saw was the golden star of knighthood shining brightly from the center of Sir Rowland's shield. There had never been such amazement in the castle before. Sir Rowland knelt before the lord of the castle to receive his commands. He still did not know why everyone was looking at him so excitedly, and he wondered if he had in some way done something wrong. "Speak, Sir Knight," said the commander as soon as he could find his voice after his surprise, "and tell us what has happened today at the castle. Have you been attacked? Have any giants come hither? Did you fight them all alone?" "No, my lord," said Sir Rowland. "Only one giant has been here, and he went away silently when he found he could not enter." Then he told them all that had happened that day, and when he had finished, the knights all looked at one another, but no one spoke a word. Then they looked again at Sir Rowland's shield, just to make sure that their eyes had not deceived them, and there was the golden star still shining. After a little silence, the lord of the castle spoke. "Sometimes men make mistakes," he said, "but our silver shields are never mistaken. Sir Rowland has fought and won the hardest battle of all today." Then the others all rose and saluted Sir Rowland, who was the youngest knight that ever carried the golden star. Isn't that a great story? I love how Sir Rowland could be trusted to do what was asked of him, and how a seemingly unimportant job was the most important job of all. Thanks for joining us today. And join us again next time for another exciting story adventure. I'm Melissa George with The Mindful Heart.